Welcome back, everyone. This is episode 146 of the Jiu-Jitsu Dummies podcast. We are brought to you by Black Belt Digital Marketing. Anything you need to build your business on or offline, website design, Google Ads, graphic design can absolutely help. Check us out at Black Belt Digital Marketing on Instagram or our website, BB Digital Marketing, where you can request a free review of your online presence today. My name is Milton Campus. I'm a black belt training out of South Florida. Woohoo! We got Christian behind the camera.
Hey.
We got Bo behind the other camera. Woo! Don't forget to like, comment, download, subscribe. We'll do all that good stuff. Click that subscribe button. It's going to be really helpful for us. And not only do we appreciate the support, but just a quick note, Google is now doing away with Google Podcasts or podcasts on Google Play. Did you know that, Christian? They're getting rid of them. So anybody that you have here at the studio, they've got to go in and they can move their podcast from Play to YouTube. So actually all of ours, I did it this weekend. All of our podcasts are now available on YouTube. So the sound is there. So the sound file is the podcast file now, along with obviously our video cast. So check us out. You can see everything, our entire library back to the first episode. Joining us today in the studio is Joe Scargill, right? He's a Jiu-Jitsu Black Belt and active Secret Service agent. Currently, can I say who you're currently serving with?
You can.
Okay, yeah, okay. Yep. I didn't ask you that.
Yep,
currently serving on Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s presidential campaign detail, correct? Did I say that correctly?
You did, but not anymore.
Oh, not anymore?
Nope.
Okay.
Since Mr. Kennedy suspended his campaign, the Secret Service no longer protects him. So I'm back to my...
So hold on, though.
Yep.
Did he, because I know he said, like, I'm supporting, but I'm not suspending. Did he use a very specific word? He was just like, because he's still like on the ballots in certain states. Go ahead.
He is, but he suspended his campaign.
Okay.
And we were protecting him under an executive order.
Okay.
That discontinued the protection once he stepped out of the campaign. Yep.
So I know, like he said, what did he say on again? He said, I know when he spoke the first time, he's like, I'm going to do this, but I'm still not running. I can't remember exactly the way he said it. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like he was kind of like, so like the campaign is still active. I understand he's saying suspending my campaign, but he said it in a way like, I'm still here, but I'm throwing my support behind Donald Trump.
Yeah, I'd have to get his campaign manager in here for you for that podcast.
I was like, this is weird. How do you both suspend and maintain your campaign? So it was kind of strange the way he said it. So I appreciate you being here. I told you we've got a couple of shout outs and things to do. So some interesting things. We were talking about Academy Safe. So we are also brought to you by academysafe.org. Academy Safe is a nonprofit whose mission is to help clean up the martial arts by advocating for background checks and U.S. Center for Safe Board certifications for all coaches and staff members at every academy throughout the United States. So this isn't just about jiu-jitsu. This is about any martial art. We've been like talking about wrestling. I mean, I consider wrestling as a martial art. If you actually Google wrestling or like the first martial art, I think it actually comes up as like wrestling was like the first martial art. Full disclosure, I am the founder and executive director of Academy Safe. Rob Ingram, the founder of McDojo Life. Everybody knows McDojo videos, right? He's been outing fake black belts for probably well over a decade. He's the executive VP, and together we're going to completely change the way people find and vet academies throughout the U.S. by providing a website registry listing Academy Safe certified gyms around the country. There'll be other things like CPR, first aid certifications. Do you have security cameras? And we're also going to do a belt or lineage check. I've been saying a belt check, and all of the disciplines were like, hey, we don't have that traditional belt check. What are you going to do? So now we're calling it, we always understood that, but we're saying a belt and lineage check, right? So for those academies or like wrestling, right? And other disciplines that don't necessarily have belts, right?
Yeah.
We want to know where you got your art from, your training from.
I mean, we do it when we buy dogs, right? If you buy a show dog, you're going to check the pedigree, right? So it makes sense if you're going to, invest your time and money into learning jiu-jitsu, you should have a good pedigree or lineage.
The craziest thing that getting into this little world that I've found out, I knew this part, but to know that it's out there and people have done nothing about it. Teachers get background checks. After school workers get background checked. A lot of martial arts academies have an after school program, right? They go pick the kids up and they bring them to the academy. There's no like full mandate. I'm learning that there are some cities and states like that mandate something throughout the U.S., but for the most part, you could run an aftercare program at a martial arts academy. Nobody has to have a background check. which is absolutely nuts to me.
Yeah, to go into my kid's school, I had to have a background check, and I'm a Secret Service agent.
To go into your school as because you're coaching?
No,
or even as a parent?
Yeah, as a parent, like if I want to volunteer for a field trip or an activity they're having in class, you have to submit.
But just as a parent with the student?
Well, I think if you're not going in the school, you don't. But you go and I submitted my information. They did a background check, and then every time you go to the school, they scan your driver's license, and it prints out a yellow tag that you're good to go.
Really?
Yeah.
I need to know that system. You have to find out the name of that system for me and let me know, because what we're trying to do with Academy Safe, as well as do this, is like we want to make it easy for people to find these things. Mm-hmm. We talked about CPR, first aid, the defibrillators. We found a company that could give you the defibrillator, train you on it, train your staff on CPR and first aid, and now it's done. Yes, there's a cost associated with that, and the school would have to bear that expense, but you could do these 3 things out of the, I think, 7 things that we're asking or requiring of academies. They're covering 3 and making it very, very easy for schools to not only have the defibrillator. Speaking to these defibrillator guys, the biggest problem is schools have defibrillator. Who knows how to use it?
Yeah, the new ones are pretty eady. Like they talk to you, they'll give you instructions.
Yeah,
I don't sell defibrillators, so but
no, that's why we had you here.
But maybe I should. Right? But we use we use them in the Secret Service, obviously, as part of our trauma and medical kits, and it talks to you. There's a diagram of exactly where to put the pads. It'll say, okay, stand back. Initiate charge, click, and you push it. Very user friendly. So. If you have schools that are afraid of the technology or think that, it's almost literally idiot proof. It tells you in English exactly what to do once you turn the machine on.
I'm in a building. I live in a building where they have defibrillators all over the building. Nice gym. There's a defibrillator out in the hallways by the elevators. And I noticed for the first year, they hadn't been touched. I could see like the information packets laying over the defibrillator in the boxes. Mm-hmm. The other day, there was an inspector, and he finally went in, made sure they were all charged, and now they're good, right? What I learned, though, after that was I was having the conversation with this defibrillator guy. Now there's not only is there, the defibrillator, but usually like the pads are different on the traditional ones, at least, the pad is different for an adult and a child.
Yep.
There's a new company that actually has a defibrillator now where the defibrillator, when you put the pad on the person, by the electrical impulses that it's getting back, it knows whether it's an adult or a child, and then it adjusts itself accordingly, and then you can use the defibrillator, which I thought was amazing. It's come that far.
Yeah,
idiot proof. Yeah,
it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. So I mean, we're definitely gonna, we're pushing on this hard. We do need the community's help. We've started a GoFundMe. You can see the link in the description. By the time this airs, the landing page for the website, which actually has our blog up, and just a homepage for right now while we're building the rest of the site, where you can learn about our mission. The GoFundMe link is there. All of our social media links are there. Again, anywhere where you're watching and listening, you can see the GoFundMe. We need your help, whether it's $5 or $500. We'd love for you to help. Every little bit is going to go towards building this business, building this website, and making sure that we have the administrative staff to actually do the belt checks, the background checks, make sure that we can do everything. We need the help, and it's kind of taking a village on this one. If you can't donate, you can absolutely share the GoFundMe link on your social media. If you believe in what we're doing, tell your friends, tell your family, tell anybody that trains martial arts. So that's the best help that anybody can give us. We've also started a waiting list. You'll see a form on the new website where you can submit your academy name, the owner name, or the decision maker's name, mobile phone, and email, and even the physical address of the academy. So you'll be able to send that through the website in the next week. By the time this airs, it's probably going to be up. If not, you can email me at milton@academysafe.org and send that information. Again, academy name, owner name, mobile number, email, physical address of the academy, and then we'll be able to let you know when we launch. And the first academies on that list will be ones that will help us kind of like beta test the entire website. So again, I appreciate you guys out there. Thank you so much for that. Thank you to our friends over at Flow and Roll, hands down the best custom gi and no-gi gear in the business. Don't believe us? Visit them on Instagram at flow_and_roll. Check out their custom designs that they've created for academies across the country. Visit their website at flowandroll.com and get 20% off with code JJD. And gym owners, ask them about their pre-order program. They do a great program where you can stock up on your gis, belts, rash guards, tops and shorts. They have a great program where you can actually show your kits on their website. Your students can order from there. You come out of pocket with a very, very small investment. So if you've got like a $10,000 order, you'd maybe put down a few $100s, get your items on their website. When they get sold, you're getting the profit. Well, really that profit's going to go towards covering your order. So a little out of pocket, your students and you know, and/or people that want to wear your gear, they're floating really the rest of the money. You get any profit, and you can stock up for your academy. So again, check them out at flowandroll.com, or you can fill out the form on their website, and you can request additional information. So again, check them out. And last but not least, Leo Optics. Leo Optics. These are bamboo sunglasses. I might have I might have a pair for you today, Joe. You're a big guy. Let me see. I got a big melon. Yeah. I actually, one of the things I have to do when I buy glasses, especially if I buy them online, I'm always chatting with them. I'm like, I have a big wide head. Like it can't be like all like squeezed up against my head. So these are my favorite. It actually has
I see that. Yeah.
See that right there?
Thank you.
They have the nice little stripe there.
Wow.
They'll do any belt. I don't think anybody's asking for a white stripe, but for blue and above, they'll put the stripe there within the right. So, yeah, I might have a pair for you. Let me not. I got to look in the box at the end of the podcast. What's that? Yeah, right. It's like, why would you want the white belt, right? Leo Optics is a sunglass and apparel company specializing in these signature bamboo sunglasses. They were founded in Southern California with products reflecting the BJJ lifestyle. So check out their website at leooptics.com and use code JJD for 10% off. And let them know that we sent you guys. All right, I have one other thing, which is really cool. Joe, I'm going to try not to cry in front of you because I'm going to look like a big wuss. But this is, I just opened this morning. It got me. I was at home by myself. This got me.
What is it?
So for a couple of years after we started the podcast, we started something called the Jiu-Jitsu Dummies Foundation. I had to close. I was the only one doing it, and I opened up a marketing company, so it was kind of hard to maintain everything.
Okay.
But what we did was we awarded scholarships to kids, one-year scholarships to kids who were doing something amazing, not in their regular life. So right as we launched, do you remember the little boy? His name is Bridger Walker. He got bit in the face by a dog protecting his sister.
Yeah, I remember reading about it, yeah.
He was our first. When that happened, we were figuring out, we had a couple of people that we were looking at. And actually the runner-up wound up being the following year's winner. When we found out he did jiu-jitsu, we were like, this is the one. Like, this has to be our first scholarship.
I mean,
so Bridger, let me just show it here. Can we get this on? So he and his family have written this book. It's really cool, right? And You Can Be a Hero, written by Robert and Telia Walker. That's his dad, and I think that's his mom and dad. Illustrated by Angelo France. And it's basically just kind of like, it's a story about how to be a hero. I didn't get to read every single page because I opened it this morning. I'm like, I got to take this with me.
Yeah.
But this was amazing. I'm going to read the letter that they sent, which really got me. Dear Milton, thank you so much for all of the support you've given to our family. You were our hero when we needed it most. Wishing you all the best, the Walkers. Now, if that didn't get me, right?
Come on.
That got me. So when he won, we sent him a bunch of podcast swag. We sent him rash guards. We sent him T-shirts. We sent him a bunch of stuff. I think we sent a bunch of stuff from Flow and Roll, some gis, things like that. So the rash guard that we sent him, he didn't want to take it off. So he had it all the time. So if you look up Bridger Walker and you see him on like news stories, he's wearing our rash guard. He was like literally like they were like, we had to like trick him, I think, to like get it off of him to wash it. Because he was wearing it day and night, right? So I opened I noticed a little tab that they put in here, and I was just like, oh, what is this? He's wearing our rash guard. They drew him. That's our rash guard. That doesn't have our logo on it, but that is the rash guard. That's our original Jiu-Jitsu Dummies rash guard. And they put it into the book, which I'm super fucking proud of. Amazing. Sorry, I cursed.
No. These are not bamboo, by the way. The dollar store.
But amazing book. It's a really nice story. I think that everybody should check it out. I'll bring it up on the next podcast as well. Again, I was leaving the house. I opened it, so I didn't get all the information, but I'm sure that you can find this online. You Can Be a Hero. You can, I'm sure that you can get this online, and or look for Bridger and his family on Instagram. I will do a better job on the next episode of letting everybody know where they can get this. So I thought that was amazing. So another reason why I was a little late.
Yeah, no,
I was like, what is going on here? I can't leave like this. But amazing. I thought it was cute, right, Bo? I mean, you were with me this entire time. Just seeing him in the rash guard really got me too. It was nice. So, Joe, welcome.
Milton, thank you.
I appreciate you doing this, man. You had reached out way back, and no coincidence. I promise you, there was no coincidence in me getting back to you after the Trump assassination attempt.
Okay,
it really wasn't that. I just had time to go through my emails of like, okay, guests that have like either submitted something or, I have like, people's managers and things like that reach out. Hey, you should really have this guy. And so it gets like I get a list, and a lot of the guests that we have on are usually like, the guest that's with me today is usually recommending somebody that I should talk to or get on the next one. Last night, Tubby. You know who Tubby is? The female, Eloquent. Tubby Eloquent.
Oh, I know the name.
Yeah. She's small. She's been on the podcast a couple of times with her husband, Eric, and Tubby Eloquent.
Okay.
She sends me a message last night like, hey, you really got to have Awesome from the guy that's behind Karate Combat.
Oh, yeah.
And, she's like, you got to have him on. He's doing something new. And I'm like, let's do it. I mean, that's usually how it happens. Like, well, the easiest way is like, hey, open up an IG or a text, introduce me. They're more likely to answer me than me getting in their DMs. And then it just kind of like, they get so many messages that they're not going to see it. So it's usually how it happens. That's how I get guests on the show. Somebody's recommending somebody, or a guest, suggest somebody.
I went to a Karate Combat event with with RFK Jr. Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
In Nashville. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a super cool event.
Yeah.
I like that, that slope wall, and a lot of recognizable fighters on that too, right? I think Sam Alvey,
he's like the champ. He's got a belt.
Yeah,
he's got a belt in the organization.
He KO'd a guy. Yeah, he was a beast. But all those guys, I mean, it was a cool event. It's a small venue.
What'd you think about? Did you watch any of the CGI stuff?
Yeah, I watched all of it. Yeah.
The wall, and versus ADCC and the stoppages when you go off the mat versus the wall has been the thing that's like been highlighted the most. Like, okay, great, Craig Jones, all the craziness, but the wall not stopping the action, I think, was key for everybody.
Yeah. So like, one of the things I love about, the wrestling rule set is, especially the international styles, freestyle and Greco, if you step out, you lose a point.
Yeah.
Right. So it's very incumbent on you as the athlete to stay in the competition square. In collegiate wrestling, you don't, but you go back down, which could be even more detrimental. And I remember, so there's a lot of strategy involved in that, where in jiu-jitsu, you just kind of like roll out and go back. So yeah, I thought, the CJI was awesome. I mean, those Rotolo brothers, man, gosh darn, those guys are unbelievable.
I had to, that was so much jiu-jitsu that weekend. I mean, I didn't realize I'm so used to the UFC, which they start earlier, even when it's in Vegas, because they know the East Coast. They take kind of the time into consideration, right? They started late, and it was like I was falling asleep. It was as much action. I just watch it in the morning. Luckily, like where I turned it off on YouTube on the live stream, when I woke up in the morning, it was it was still there, and I was like, perfect. I don't got to find where I was, and I just watched the rest of it in the morning. Man, it was amazing.
Me too. You know what was funny? My wife actually stayed up and watched it. She doesn't train jiu-jitsu.
No.
She's like our team manager, our family team manager. But she actually stayed up and watched through the whole event. The second night, I fell asleep, and I put my kids to bed too. But man, that was a big event in our house.
Yeah.
It was super cool. The fact that it was free on YouTube was just unbelievable.
He's secured funding for 2025 already.
I'm sure he has.
Says,
talk about a marketing genius, man. I need to take some lessons from that guy. Holy mackerel! I mean, what an event.
I mean, it got me on multiple levels, because I was probably like less interested in him fighting Gabby. I get the story, and it was kind of funny. But that got in a certain fan base. I did, the disruption. I like disruptors. The disruption of the whole, the ADCC and just the jiu-jitsu tournament system as a whole. I don't think it could ever be the same. I think now these fighters have a leg to stand on and say, I need more money. I need to be able to, if you want me to fight like the Rotolos, I need to be able to make this my career, and I need more money when I go to these events, especially with ADCC making as much as they do. I think it was smart to say, hey, you could have gone to this last year's venue, paid less, and had more for the fighters. Go ahead. You have
No, I mean, I think, you know, you gotta, you could tell that the people that fight at those highest levels train like athletes, right? And that costs money. And I just had this conversation with a purple belt in our gym, you know, Ponte Vedra Beach Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, what is a purple belt? No, I'm just kidding.
not my gym, but a gym I teach at. And I said, hey, you know, he was, you know, kind of stuck in the mud. And I said, look, why don't you just like train a position, you know, pick a position and just train out of that for a couple months. I got really good doing that. Well, you know, good relatively. And I said, look, name me another sport, any other sport, team sport or individual sport, where you just show up to practice and play the game, the whole game through. You can't do it, right? Like if you play golf, you don't just go and hit 18 holes. Very rarely do you ever do that, right? If you play football, you don't just line up 11 on 11 and play 4 quarters of football, right? You practice plays. So I'm like, I think if you want to be, you know, a competitor at this and make money at this, that you need to look at this like and train it like a sport, which is, you know, practice skill sets, practice situations, and less of the, you know, slap hands and roll for, you know, a couple 10-minute rounds and call it good. So, and it was obvious that those guys do that, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
man. Do you watch the one championship stuff? Do you watch any of that?
I do. Yeah.
Which you know, they're both the Rotolos are both fighting in that organization, which I think is like I for a long time I said I don't think jiu-jitsu will ever appeal to anyone who doesn't actually train.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to have the casuals. Like UFC, you have the casuals. People are like, you know, hit them in the balls, you know, stand them up. Those guys, right?
Stand them up, right? Stand them
up. My dad was like that. My dad's a huge boxing fan, and now he's like completely into the UFC. He watches more than I do. He's like, you're not a fan, and he's telling me about like these kids that are fighting on like Dana White's Contender Series and stuff.
Oh, it's funny.
So, yeah, man, it's I said that for a long time, and there was, you know, one championship. They wound up, you know, getting onto Prime, and I started to watch them on Amazon Prime. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, this is how you do it. You mix it in with, you know, a Muay Thai fight, a kickboxing fight, an MMA fight, and there's this jiu-jitsu fight, and people are now knowing the names and like super excited to see them fight. I do like this, what they did, again, back to CJI. I do think that even in one, they should have rounds. That would be an amazing, like the 10 minutes. It's like, all right, what about doing the, was it 3 or 5 minutes?
I think it was 5. It was three 5-minute rounds, except for the championships, which were 5. Same as UFC, right?
I think that should be amazing. And again, I think what he said, you know, Craig was saying was, you know, this is how we make it appeal to that same audience if we give them the same structure, right? Judges, rounds, minutes, and then the walls. You gave me an MMA fight without the stand-up, you know, and I think that one championship could take it further if they did that. Because I've watched the fights and I'm just like, you know, like, you know, 10 minutes and then it's just over. It's like, come on, they could go another 10, you know, they could go longer, right?
Well, I think, you know, you also, your game's different when you know you have 10 minutes, right? You're not going to, and if you're not going to have the scoring at the end of every round, you may not. Yeah, I think there's some strategies you saw at play, right, that could be detrimental too. So, you know, if you know, you know, it's kind of a stalemate, you can kind of flurry in the last 30 seconds and steal the rounds, right? So maybe they need to, I think I like the, what did you think of the rules? Let me ask you this. Like for CJI? Yeah.
I mean, I have to say, like, I liked everything about it. I mean, if I don't, like, I could get nitpicky about something. I can't think of anything to, you know, again, rounds, the judging, although the judging was just like, man, you know, it's again, like, just like MMA, it's just like, what fight were you watching? Okay, is it the angle you were watching? You didn't see some, you know, a certain submission or an attempt or, but I mean, you know, when, I think anytime you don't just have all 3 judges seeing it the same way or just like seeing it so lopsided sometimes. That's the only thing that kind of stood out to me. It's just like, okay, this human element is always going to be a factor where it's just like, how did you see it differently than the rest of us? That, if anything, but that's also maybe the beauty of having the judges so that we make sure we get everybody's perspective or, you know, different perspectives. But otherwise, I mean, again, rounds, the wall, I think the walls were amazing. The fact that it doesn't have to stop and kind of like the cage, like you can kind of use the wall as a weapon in that you can use it to flip, you can use it to push, you can gain a different angle. I thought all that was amazing. I can't say there's anything about it that I would change. Again, if I had to be nitpicky, just the judging was, I was like, why is this so, lopsided in some cases, or how did you see it this way? I did like as well, if I'm not mistaken, right, they actually tell you the score at the end of the round so that everyone is hearing, which I think is amazing, which they've never been able to do in boxing, right, or MMA, where it's, at least in the UFC, there's that open scoring, which I think really puts everybody on their toes, on, like especially judges, like, I really need to pay good attention and really score this properly.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I mean, I really can't find anything that I didn't like about it. But how about you?
Yeah. No, I thought everything was great. I agree with Cade, though. I think there needs to be some kind of rule to force some action if you're on the bottom, right? Whether it's, hey, you lose a point if you pull guard, or lose a half point if you pull guard, and then fight out of it, or maybe what wrestling does. I don't know if on the internet, in freestyle and like Olympic style wrestling. One of the Olympic styles. I'll get crushed by my Greco-Roman guys I used to coach if I don't give it credit. They'll put an athlete on a shot clock, so you have like 20 minutes to score, or I'm sorry, 20 seconds to score, right? So maybe do that if you're on bottom, like, so don't penalize someone a point, because that's pretty drastic. But maybe, hey, if you pull guard, give them like a good 10 seconds to get something going, and if not, put them on a shot clock, either sweep or reverse, or you lose a point that way. Maybe something like that to kind of get it going, so you can't stall and then just flurry, at the last 15, 20 seconds of the round.
So for people that didn't watch it, what we're talking about is when somebody's pulling guard, right, they were penalizing the person on their feet for not engaging, but this guy just sat down on his ass and is like, come to me.
Yeah.
And the guy, if I'm not the aggressor, the guy on the feet, if he's not the aggressor, he was getting, they were getting warnings, right?
Yeah.
And they could eventually take a point, right? So he did have an incredible point with that. I don't know what organization does it, where if you sit, do they?
Well, I think ADCC penalizes you.
Okay,
for
so
sitting,
if you sit, and even in CJI, it was you need to be connected, so you can't just sit.
But that was very liberal.
They did
very
it.
Liberal.
It was kind of like at the opening of the fight.
Yeah.
Once they were in the rounds, they weren't calling it if you just sat. You barely touched the guy and you sat. But that's what we're talking about.
But I think if you put them on a shot clock, like, hey, you could pull guard, you don't even have to touch, but now you've got, and then you've. So like stalling is like one of those things, I think, that at least in jiu-jitsu, it doesn't get called very often, right? So I think you've also got to be careful, if you do put the bottom guy on a shot clock, that the top guy is trying to do something and not just backing up, right? Because then it would be obviously impossible to do anything. So
you could be a guard puller, but essentially still be active and attacking. You could be, coming forward, and you could be looking for the legs, and you can,
And I think if you're not, though, there should be a time limit to you either need to sweep or reverse or come up or at least a legit submission attempt.
Yeah.
And to either to stop that clock or get the penalty. But again, easy for me to criticize sitting on my couch eating popcorn watching these awesome athletes.
I do think in that rule set you could potentially, like you're talking about, giving them if you're giving them 20-second
whatever the
clock,
time
right?
is, I don't know.
But then stand them up. Then you have are we saying then you stand them up, or do you take the point?
Well, so
or maybe X amount of warnings, and then
I would take the point and stand them up. Just to, again, if you want to get people to watch, right, that aren't like you and me, right, people that aren't jiu-jitsu enthusiasts. If you want to just get the general public to watch, you've got to keep the action moving, right? Yeah. And this is one of the things, with wrestling too. Is like we always joke around. It's like it's who watches wrestling? It's former wrestlers and parents, right?
Yeah,
so you need to have rules that are easy to understand, right? Like the wrestling rule book is like that, and it so you got to have rules that are easy to understand to a common person, right? And then you need to have something that keeps the action going. And I think it's just really hard for someone that doesn't practice jiu-jitsu to look and say, well, this guy was on top and this guy was on bottom for 15 minutes, but the guy on bottom wins the fight by a decision. Yeah. It just doesn't compute, right?
Yeah. Like you really have to understand jiu-jitsu to be able to go, well, the guy on the bottom actually did more.
Yeah.
Unlock the power of your online presence with Black Belt Digital Marketing. Their reputation management program ensures your Google business profile is seen by more potential customers. Black Belt Digital Marketing is your full-service digital marketing agency specializing in local SEO and reputation management. Boost your business today. Visit bbdigitalmarketing.com. Your success is their priority.
Miss your morning routine. Bar Pro.
Special thank you to the crew over at Flow and Roll for all their support. Flow and Roll is renowned for their incredible no-gi rash guards, shorts, and leggings. Flow and Roll has quickly become the premier custom apparel provider for academies big and small throughout the United States. Reach out today to discuss your custom order and ask about their incredible pre-order program. You can send an email to flowandroll@gmail.com or visit their Instagram at flow_n_roll and shoot them a direct message. And yes, they can create an awesome custom gi for your academy as well. Visit flowandroll.com to check out their awesome designs, and while you're there, pick up a Jiu-Jitsu Dummy signature tee exclusively at flowandroll.com. And remember, you'll get 20% off your purchase of t-shirts, rash guards, or gis with code JJD.
It's funny that you said you reminded me of, I went to the massage therapist earlier this week, and she's a former power lifter.
Oh, nice.
So she does like a really great sports massage, right? So she's an athlete. She says, she just goes, I'm massaging this jiu-jitsu guy, a jiu-jitsu guy, and I'm in Coral Springs, so it's Coconut Creek is right there, so like the Mecca right there, ATT, Alliance, all those schools are right there. And she says she's massaging him, but he's watching. She's like, what was it called? AD something? He's watching ADCC on his phone, and at some point, I guess somebody went to pull guard. She's like, and the guy just sat on his butt. So again, she's like, what's going? She's like, I was laughing. What's going on here? And I'm like, they call that pulling guard, and I'm like, we're talking about it, but I get it to the uninitiated, to somebody who doesn't train, that just looks so odd. My father, again, boxing fan, used to just say, what is this hugging on the ground? And I'm like, shot through the heart, like, Dad, that's the thing that I do. I've been training for a decade, and you're calling it like two guys hugging on the ground. It
doesn't look good.
It's my life. This is what I do as often as possible, and you're calling it, two guys laying on top of each other. Now he understands it more, and he's more, more respectful of it. But
you got to do something. You got to do something to where you're not absolutely crushing someone pulling guard, right? Because it is jiu-jitsu, and this is a huge aspect of the sport, the martial art. But you've got to figure out, and probably going to take someone smarter than me, but you got to figure out a way to where they can still, play their game, pull guard, and not, the penalty's just not so severe that you're never going to do it, right? But also that, like, hey, if you're going to do it, you better get to it, because you got people paying and watching that really don't train, but they like it, and you got to keep their interest.
So I definitely want to get into wrestling and your jiu-jitsu background, but let's get this out of the way. Everybody's going to want to know. They're like, when is he going to ask him about Trump?
All right.
Thoughts on Bo's laughing over in the corner. Bo, that's the only reason Bo showed up today. Bo's like, come on. He's got his book over there, conspiracy theories. He's like, let me pencil this in. Go ahead, Joe. What do you got to say? So obviously, the assassination attempt on Trump, and just basically the basic feedback on the Secret Service's position, if you're able to talk about it.
Sure. So just for context, I'm an active Secret Service agent. My current assignment is I'm the agent in charge of the Jacksonville, Florida field office.
Okay.
I was RFK Jr.'s detail leader while he was receiving Secret Service protection. Been with the agency 24 and a half years. So with regard to Butler, Pennsylvania, so there's, I think that I know of, there's 5 investigations going on right now, right?
Only 5?
Well, that I know of, right? So the Secret Service's internal investigation that is obviously in the news. The FBI is the investigation. So whenever there's a critical incident with the Secret Service, we would hold that crime scene, whether it's Butler, Pennsylvania, and then the FBI has jurisdiction to conduct the investigation.
Okay.
So the FBI investigation, the Department of Homeland Security investigation. So the Secret Service is an organization inside the Department of Homeland Security. So you've got these different departments: Department of Justice, Department of Interior. We're in the Department of Homeland Security, and then there's at least 2 congressional investigations that I know of. Okay, I'm not part of any of those investigations. And I know this is not the answer that you want or the listeners want, but it would just be like super irresponsible of me to comment on something that I don't, I'm not a part of.
Gotcha. So tell me your feeling on, again, if you're able, just what is it like at the Secret Service right now as far as morale, and with the change of leadership, how have things changed, if anything, and how are you guys just feeling as an active agent? How are you feeling about your organization as a whole? Yeah.
So again, I love the Secret Service. I'm not going to tell you it wasn't embarrassing, and I'm eligible to retire. I'm not going to, but so this was really bad timing.
Don't retire right now, because everyone's going to say you retired.
This was really bad timing for me personally from a brand perspective. But look, I mean, I don't think anyone was going to tell you what happened was great. I mean, it wasn't our finest hour, not by a long shot, right? But it's not to simplify it to jiu-jitsu, but look, I mean, you lose matches, right? And sometimes those losses are devastating, but you may have to wrestle back or compete back because your team, whether it's A-Force or Checkmat or I'm sorry, what organization?
I'm at Coral Springs Jiu-Jitsu right now, and I've made a change. This is part of the A-Safe thing. I don't know if you've heard me talk about it.
I have.
I left my gym, because of certain things going on. So I'm at a new gym. Not affiliated.
But sometimes you need to get back up and you need to keep competing, right? And so what happened was horrible, and it was definitely a black eye for the Secret Service. I mean, we're taking a beating on social media, but we've got awesome people, and we've got people that want to be out and want to be doing the job. But I mean, our operational tempo is super high right now because if you think about it, this was going to be what we would consider a light election year, right? So we had
really
we had a couple months ago. Right?
It feels so different from the guy watching the news.
Right.
It's like, Jesus.
But think back, to the spring. We had a sitting president who already receives full Secret Service protection.
I get
right?
that. Yeah.
So that's staffed. Okay. We had his vice president who fully staffed. And we had a former president running. We protect all former presidents. Now that had to be beefed up a little bit, but there was also a staffed protection detail. So we were thinking, hey, this isn't going to be too bad. The only new detail we're going to have is to pick up whoever now we know it's vice presidential candidate Vance. So we were like, man, this is going to be manageable. Well, then President Biden steps down. So now Vice President Harris needs a full presidential protection package, a new VP. So now another candidate, Robert F. Kennedy gets protection, another candidate. So, we went from, basically having the staff a detail and a half to now we've got, basically 3 people receiving full presidential protection, the vice president, 2 vice presidential candidates, and then we had the independent candidate for a while. So, it was a huge lift, and our people are running all over the country. I mean, I was out for 6 weeks straight. I was at the RNC. I received, former President Trump the day after the incident. He came to Milwaukee, and I was the supervisor over that visit. So, and then I went right from there to, Mr. Kennedy's detail. So it was, it's been crazy, man. But it's, we have people that are really mission driven, and, and again, I mean, it sounds silly, but it's really a lot like jiu-jitsu is. You just keep showing up, right? You get smashed, you show up, you have a great day, you show up, and it's tough, but again, it's just an awesome organization, and the men and women in the Secret Service are top notch. I don't care what anyone says. It's just I have so much respect for everybody in our organization, from our administrative staff to the agents and officers that carry guns and fly in planes.
What I know, there was a little bit, I guess it took a little while for RFK to get a Secret Service detail. What took so long? Again, if you're able to talk about it, what took so long, and why did it have to become a presidential?
Yeah. So, good question. So again, and just for everybody's knowledge, like, I'm not here representing the Secret Service.
Sure,
I'm off today. I have permission from my agency to come on the podcast, but these are this is Joe Scargill talking to you about the Secret Service, right? So this isn't me officially as a spokesperson for the agency. Gotcha. So we have authority to protect people under two different mechanisms generally, right? And so, federal law, which allows us to protect, the president, the vice president, former presidents, family members, visiting heads of state, and then executive order. So the president saying, protect that person, right?
Okay, executive order was what happened with RFK,
correct.
Right?
So when a presidential candidate receives protection, this is not the Secret Service's decision. So it's not like, we sit around like, hey, you guys think we should pick up protection on RFK? Not yet, right? So there's a committee, and I believe it's called a CPAG, C-P-A-G, and I don't remember exactly what it stands for, because again, man, I left DC in 2007, and I have not been back there.
Okay.
So
that's a good thing.
Yeah.
You're happy about that?
For me, it is, right? For
Okay.
me, it is. I've had a wild career, man, and we can talk about the different places I've been. So, so this committee it's made up of bipartisan, congressional members, Homeland Security members, right? And then there's a criteria they look at, and it's based on polling numbers and fundraising and things like that. And again, if I'm not 100% correct on this, I apologize, but this is my understanding. And so then a decision's made on when, that protection, the Secret Service will give this person protection because they meet this criteria. So it's not some arbitrary thing, but again, due to, I think, July 13th incident and, some things, some threat intel on RFK Jr., the president decided to give him protection.
Was it post-Trump? Was it?
Yeah.
It was post-Trump. It was assassination attempt, and then they were like, oh, that pretty much came right after that.
Yep.
Right, okay.
And it's I'll tell you, man, it's intrusive to have Secret Service protection. I mean, it is intrusive.
Because it's not just him. It's family, right? Family members, then...
Well, it was just him that was under the executive order, but, family members live in his house, right?
Yeah.
So you go from coming and going to now you've got, people standing all over your house, cameras, thermal imaging, drones,
wow,
dogs, vehicle checkpoints. So it's very intrusive, to someone that's not used to having that, right?
Yeah.
And it's a lot. It's a
yeah.
lot.
Wow. Yeah. I was going to ask a really stupid question. It was going to be a joke, but we went from hearing about the bear, bear, and now the whale that he cut off the head of the whale. Do you have any comments on that, or like were those stories? Did you hear those stories before they hit the news?
You'd have to reach out to a staff for that. So like the thing with it is these ladies and gentlemen that we protect, they trust us not only with their lives, right, but they trust us with their confidence. So, on our badge, the Secret Service motto is worthy of trust and confidence, right? So again, like, what would sell was for me to tell you, but again, like I could never betray the integrity of both my badge and then the faith that those folks have in me personally and the Secret Service in general. Are you guys forbidden from like writing books and things like that about your experience? No, or, like I'm on this podcast. I have permission to do this, right?
Yeah.
There's I look at it like there's different buckets of things you can talk about, right? There's things about my career, places I've been, how jiu-jitsu has impacted my law enforcement career and my career in the Secret Service, which I think it not only has impacted, it is the sole reason why I've been successful here. And, that's all fine. I would never repeat anything I ever heard a protectee say, and I would never betray that trust and confidence. And I don't think, even though people would want to hear it, I think 5 minutes after you heard it, you'd be like, man, like I wouldn't want that guy protecting me, man. You. Like why, this guy was supposed to protect him and he's on a podcast talking a bunch of nonsense, So I think that, we're used to, we want the soundbite, but I think any like decent human being would be like, man, I wish that guy wouldn't have said that. We pay this guy's salary. We trust him to protect our leaders, and he's, writing a book about what he was saying.
So with that being said, I know I mentioned this before we got on air,
Tangled
and
up here.
I was actually, you had sent me a video.
Yep.
You were heading to I believe it was a podcast with RFK.
Mm-hmm.
And I get, the video that you sent me was from the inside facing out. You guys pull up in a truck. RFK gets out of the truck and walks directly into the warehouse. and the two podcast hosts are in there, right? They're waiting to receive him. And I, just immediately, saw a comment that was just like, there you go. Look, how could you let him walk into that warehouse by himself? And I'm like, in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm like, they had to have like cleared that warehouse. It wasn't like he just showed up and they walk in and like, they're putting him in danger. But you responded to me earlier about that.
Yeah, I mean,
let's share it.
Yeah, of course, we wouldn't do that. But again, man, it's
that warehouse was cleared prior. You guys, and you had guys inside already.
Yeah, of course. Okay, I mean, but let's look at jiu-jitsu. Like we talk about CJI. Like you could sit there, like, how are you going to let that guy lay on the ground and just grab you by the ankle, and you're gonna let that happen? Like, this is ridiculous. Come on. I mean, of course, it's easy to sit and look at anything, right? Jiu-jitsu, karate combat, UFC, what the Secret Service does, what a police officer does out on the street, right? And I'm not saying that there's not mistakes that are made, right? And that you can't look and say like, well, I've never been a cop, but that was not good, right? We've all seen these videos. But yeah, just, I mean, it's kind of open season now on anybody and anything. And again, it's the same thing when, the CGI.
We're only seeing like this one little piece of the video in that, 30 seconds. And then somebody's commenting and like, they're basically providing commentary on the entire Secret Service because they saw a 30-second video of a guy walking into a warehouse.
Well, you're in side control. Why don't you just stand up? Just stand up. Right. What are you doing? Just stand up,
Yeah. That's so crazy. So let's talk about, you mentioned, we're obviously talking about the Secret Service. Tell us about how you got your start in law enforcement, and then we'll talk about, how you found jiu-jitsu as well.
Yeah, so I started with the Secret Service in 2000 in Columbus, Ohio. I was with the police department before that, and no real jiu-jitsu experience at all. I had, dabbled in some traditional martial arts and wrestling, and when I started, how the Secret Service career goes is usually start in what we call like a field office or a resident office, right? And you do your first few years there, and then you move on to a protection assignment. And then after you complete your protection assignment, you would go back to the field office. So that's kind of like the general life cycle. So couple moves, couple assignments. I've had 7. So I've kind of taken some deviations in my career. So after, working in Columbus for, 4 years, I believe 2004, I got selected to go to our training academy and be an instructor. And I worked, initially I worked in a section, we call it control tactics, but it's basically a defensive tactics. So this was my first real exposure to jiu-jitsu. We had a Helson Gracie Black Belt on staff. His name's Scott Devine.
Okay.
He has a school in Jacksonville. He's based out of Brunswick, Georgia now. I think he's a 5-stripe black belt now. I mean, but he was one of the original like OG, trained out in Hawaii.
Yeah.
And so I had never, formally trained jiu-jitsu before, and I started training with Scott, and he had some brown belts in the area. So that was my first exposure to jiu-jitsu. And once a week, we would just, different instructors from different sections would get together, and we'd train in our mat room, in our defensive tactics room, and mostly no-gi, almost exclusively no-gi, just because we're in our BDUs and t-shirts, and it was awesome, right? And then Scott went and left to become a instructor down at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. And we started a relationship with Yamasaki's gym. You remember Mario Yamasaki? He used to be a UFC ref.
Yeah.
So him and his brother have a gym in Rockville, Maryland. So we started going there and training. So I got my blue belt from Scott. And then before I left the training academy, I got my purple from Yamasaki. So
very cool.
It's like 2007, and I was in our academy, and I wanted to I wanted to go overseas. It had always been a dream of mine to go, and I wanted to go to Italy. So I'd put in to go to Rome, our field office in Rome, like 3 times, rejected 3 times. So put in for a 4th time, and I got a call from someone in headquarters, and they're like, "Hey, Rome's not going to work out for you, but how does Sofia, Bulgaria sound?" And I'm like, "Okay." And this person that called me isn't someone you say no to, right? And I go, "So I'm Googling Bulgaria." I didn't even know where the hell it was. So. I said, "Yeah, you know what? Sure, we'll go." So I head over to Bulgaria, and we had a small office in the embassy there.
So this is you moving the family.
I was solo.
Okay.
The dogs and I,
Okay.
So my dog and I. So I go over there with my dog, and there's no jiu-jitsu there, but there is a hell of a combat sports
thinking
culture.
A lot of wrestling,
a
right?
lot of wrestling, a lot of sambo, a lot of judo.
Okay, sambo too, that's right. Yeah.
So I, we have locally engaged staff that we hire at every embassy. So we have Bulgarians that were part of the guard force there, and I got to be friendly with one of them in particular, and he was on there. They have a kind of like the soccer clubs, in London. They have sambo judo clubs over there. So I started training at this combat judo club called Tessica. It would be like CSK in English, right? And this club was super competitive. So their heavyweight was this heavyweight named Blagoy Ivanov. He's the only one that beat Fedor. He beat him in the combat sambo world championships.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, just these guys are killers, right? So, I got leg locked to death in this place, for years. And then I met someone through the embassy that wanted to start training jiu-jitsu, and they had, done some videos and stuff like that. And his name's Bobby Kurov, and they own him and his brother Vlad are both black belts now. It's called Twisted Jiu-Jitsu in Sofia. They're Coyoteja's affiliation. Just awesome guys. So I started training those guys and just kind of no-gi jiu-jitsu. So I was over there for about 5 years. So
can I go back? Let me ask you one quick question. When you were talking about, because I know this is happening with a lot of police departments, and the way that like jiu-jitsu kind of snuck in was that, they do some kind of combative program. But there might be like a jiu-jitsu guy in the coaching staff, and it wasn't really mandated or approved, but they would be like, look, and then they were showing jiu-jitsu. Is that kind of the same thing that's happened, or has the Secret Service really adopted jiu-jitsu as an incredible form of training? Is it like anything official and there's a jiu-jitsu class or no? Is it the same way? It's just like become part of the tactics.
There's not, man, because just like any law enforcement agency, right? Once you leave the academy, there is periodic in-service training, but it would never be to the level of training. So I kind of look at it like this, right? Everybody always say, oh, they should provide the training for you. They should provide the training for you. But I look at it like this, like in any other profession, right? And if you want to get ahead, right? You want to be the best. Like you're going to have to go out and seek out opportunities outside of what's provided to you by your employer, whether it's finance, whether it's, insurance sales, whatever. So I always, I liked it. So I just kept training. And I'll tell you a quick story on why I think it's so important, in law enforcement to have these skills is that it's allowed me to interact with people, the general public or even, people we were going to arrest at a much more relaxed level because I have a confidence, not that I can, kick your ass, but just a confidence that I'm trained, right? And maybe, my day will come and someone will get the jump on you and there's nothing you can do. But there's evidence to support this, that if you're confident, you look the part, right? You're physically fit and you're trained, that you could deter the attack. So the FBI has the Behavioral Sciences Unit, which is, if you ever saw Silence of the Lambs and Mindhunter on Netflix, that's that unit, right? They are psychologists and agents, and they study criminal behavior. So they created a report, and the last one I read was I was in the academy in 2004. So they created this report, and they call it, attacks on law enforcement officers in the line of duty. So they had studied all these officers that had been attacked or killed in the line of duty, and they interviewed the criminals that did it, right? So I remember this one in particular. This bad guy had decided, he just had terrible interactions with law enforcement. You and I don't have a psychology degree. I don't know if you do or not. No. We could probably write this guy's profile in 5 minutes of talking to him, right? So not some super high level thing, like just, total degenerate. And he had decided, like, I'm going to kill a cop, right? So he had, in this 1 week period, he had multiple interactions with different law enforcement. So he had made his mind up he was going to do it, journaled about it. So he gets pulled over the first time, and it was by a state trooper. So the guy gets out of the car, spit sign shoes, flat top, in shape, mirrored sunglasses, walks up, gives the guy a ticket. Guy doesn't do it. And they asked him why. He's like, I didn't think I could take him. The guy just looked squared away, right? Yeah. Second interaction with the cop, female officer gets out, also squared away, in shape, polite. And he was like, well, I think I could have taken her, but I wasn't sure. And I didn't want to go to jail and say I got my ass kicked by a woman, right? Third time he gets pulled over, he sees the guy step out and notices his shoes are all scuffed up. Officer's overweight, nervous, walks up to the car. This is how observant this guy was. Probably didn't have a high school education, right? Notices that the holster on his gun had dust on it. So he's like, I know this guy hasn't been training. Got the jump on him and killed him.
Wow.
So, I always tell anyone that wants to get into law enforcement or that is in law enforcement is that even if you can't fight, even if you don't know jiu-jitsu, if you look like you do, right? Like you're going to deter these attacks.
I've called that on the show and in my personal life. I go, when I started to train jiu-jitsu, I thought I knew how to fight.
Yeah.
And then when you start training jiu-jitsu and even stand up, you start to realize not only that, like what you don't know, it's like what other people know. Like, oh, that skinny guy that kicked my ass in the gym, I run into guys like that all the time. I don't know, unless somebody's got obvious, like is wearing a jiu-jitsu or boxing shirt or has cauliflower ear, you wouldn't know, like they wouldn't stand out. But I call that what you just described as, being squared away, is there's a quiet confidence that goes along with having trained either jiu-jitsu or any type of martial arts. You walk into a room and you carry yourself differently. If you walk into a room full of, a bar or something, and it's just like, I don't have any worries about protecting myself or anyone I'm with.
Right.
Where before I learned how to fight, it was a little bit more like, me and my guys used to walk into places and be like, yeah, we're probably the guys that are going to start the fight, or like, make sure that people know not to fuck with us.
Yeah.
But, once I really knew how to fight, it's like, I don't even want anybody to know that I train, right? I'm always forever in a jiu-jitsu shirt, but it's just because of the show. But I don't, necessarily like, I know, my dad was a cop and he never wanted anybody to know he's a cop. He's like, I'm off duty. I don't need to get involved, but I'm here if something happens. He always he'd go out to play the lottery 5 minutes away and he'd be, he'd wear his gun. But again, that quiet confidence is something that changes in you once you know how to fight and take care of yourself. That just doesn't happen when you're like, just watching the UFC and thinking that you can take everybody, or, that guy that says, oh, I turn red. Yeah. Bo likes to say, he's just like, I don't know, man, everything goes red and then I go crazy, right? Like, we know, like, unless you're training, it's great that you feel that way and you have that confidence, but guess what? You can turn red. You're probably going to be passed out, turning red and passed out if you encounter somebody that knows even a blue belt. That is more dangerous than that
can
crazy
hold you
guy.
down. I mean, we've seen, how many athletes have you seen, like really good competitive athletes, come into your gym and you put them, like knee on belly, 3 seconds, right?
And they can't believe it. They can't believe what's happening to them.
It's a different thing, and I think part of it is the psychology of it, right? Like I remember, we wear suits a lot in the Secret Service when we work, and I remember somebody saying, like, do you guys ever worry about somebody grabbing your tie? And I'm like, I don't. And he's like, really? I'm like, now you're close to me.
Yeah. Now I can grab you.
Yeah, you grab me. Now I'm going to grab you. Like, this is fine. You're not going to choke me with this thing. Yeah. Like, we've tried it in our academy. It's very difficult to do. Yeah. So, I'm like, I don't worry about it.
If you're pulling on a tie, it's not going to choke you. Like, you would think, right? There's too much space. And you're not going to go like that and pull up like, and
your hands are,
I got you.
And you've got your hands committed there.
Yeah, true.
You know what I mean? So it's but you've got to train it, right? You don't want the first time to figure out how to deal with someone doing that is when it's really happening.
And I'm noticing as I think back, I mean, not only that it's summer, but I don't see anybody, I like keep thinking back to the Trump incident. I'm thinking about like nobody had a tie on.
Yeah,
like it was open collar. I don't know if that's just a summer thing or like, let's not wear a tie and give somebody something to grab.
We usually key off of the protectee on how we dress, right? So like we're not going to outdress the protectee.
Okay.
But we're not going to underdress either. So if they're wearing a suit, we normally wear a suit. If they wear no tie, we usually just mirror what their attire is.
Oh, even like when I've seen like the president jogging or something like.
Yeah,
we've got also like you'll be in a jogging
PT
suit.
Gears.
Okay, all right.
Some guys, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So sorry about that. I got off track. So Bulgaria, 5 years, lots of training. And then I moved back to, and I hated the gi, man. I hated the gi. So I didn't do anything with gi. So I was kind of held up at purple belt for a long time because, between the wrestling and training a lot, I was decent. When I was younger, I hadn't had spine surgery yet or any of that stuff. So, I went to Detroit, Michigan for all my hard work in Sofia, Bulgaria. I got,
give him a promotion.
So I met my wife when I was overseas, and her first experience coming back to America was to live in Detroit. So
was coming back, or was she Bulgarian, or was she an American citizen and was literally coming back?
Never been to America.
Coming with you. I got you.
Surprise.
This is Detroit.
Yeah.
This is America.
I met a guy there. I think he lives down in this area now. His name's Ryan Fiorenzi, and he was the first black belt. He's a Jean-Jacques Mikado black belt, but the first black belt in Michigan. So he had a school there, you know, and, you know, I got to train there, and, you know, I taught a class or two for him, and you know, he was just so generous and so welcoming for me in that gym, and just a super, super nice guy. And, you know, I think I was telling you before the podcast, like I've gotten like an Ivy League jiu-jitsu education on like, you know, community college budget. Like I've just met awesome people that have really been generous, and you know, I've been able to trade some wrestling coaching for that. So, you know, was in Michigan for 3.5 years, then moved to Houston, Texas. You know, was training at a gym called Paradigm down there. They have a, Jason Knopf did his first grappling competition in their promotion. Reed Slager's the owner of that gym. Again, awesome guy. It's a GFT gym. Really competitive guys down there. Was there for 2 years, still no gi.
Yeah.
And then I go to Minnesota.
I would think because you're always in a suit that you would have actually gravitated a little bit more towards the gi.
Dude, I'm
'cause, you know,
claustrophobic.
like, yeah.
I'm like, yeah. I mean, it would bug me, you know.
Yeah.
And
because I know a lot of the pictures that we got and we promoted were you actually in a gi.
Yes. So I love it now. I've done a 360, and it's a cool story on how I got into it. So, so we go up to Minnesota, and you know, I was assigned to the office there, and I was training at a gym, and then the you know, COVID hit. So there was a black belt there. He had just gotten his black belt. And I guess he'd had it for about a year or two. His name's Lemmy Sturia, and he owns a gym now called the Danger Room in downtown Minneapolis. Checkmate gym, awesome guy, big dude. Like his half guard's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's so hard to pass, man. So he had a garage, and he had like this corrugated metal up around the garage. It looked like something out of like you know, some movie where you're going to murder people in this room. And it's Minnesota, and it wasn't heated. We just had a space heater. So there was 4, 5, 6 of us. It would just kind of depend on the day, and we trained. So backing up, so I did get my brown belt. So how I got my brown belt was Mauricio Ka, who's he's a checkmat 4-stripe under Leo Vieira. He was the head jiu-jitsu instructor at a place I was training called The Cellar. And so COVID hit, but I still had access to the wrestling room, and one of the wrestlers had a mat in their garage. And could I sidebar into how the wrestling thing got me? Okay. So, you know, I hadn't done anything in the wrestling world for years and years. You know, I taught some basics at jiu-jitsu schools coming and going, and I was nothing special. Like I was a slightly below average. I was probably a drastically below average wrestler. So I go up for my house hunting trip, which, you know, the government, when they move you, they give you a nice package. Yep. And I'm in Minnesota, and when I was with the Columbus Police Department, my training officer, both his sons wrestled at the University of Minnesota. These kids were like studs, like, you know, undefeated high school wrestlers, you know, USA Today consensus #1s. Yeah. The one, Dustin Slater, won a national championship as a true freshman. His brother CP, you know, All-American, World Greco team member. Just, you know, so I remember them when they were my boys' age, right? So now they're grown men, and I go up there, and you know, one night we go out to dinner, have a couple drinks, and a couple of the wrestlers from the Minnesota Storm team were there. So these are guys that were done with college, and now they're trying to make an Olympic team, right? So it's a professional wrestling club. They do Greco, and then there's a freestyle side, and you know, they're on a stipend, but it's not like you're signing a 7-figure signing bonus, right? It's a pretty Spartan lifestyle. So we were all out, and one of the guys from the team, Pat Smith, he's a 4-time world team member, just awesome guy, was like, hey, we got a 97 kilo guy, and we don't really have anyone to kind of help him out, you know, because we're mostly smaller guys. You know, would you be willing to come in? And I'm like, man, I'm in my 40s, I'm a dad, you know, I'm not really, you know, in shape to do this, but you know, I need some friends. And you know, the Slaters, their dad was kind of my mentor in law enforcement. Sure. So I'm like, I gotta help out. So I remember, you know, they had practice the next week, and I showed up, and you know, I started training with this kid. His name's Eric Tui, and the head coach of that club, Dan Chandler, is like a wrestling legend. He was in Rulon Gardner's corner when he beat Karelin, that big Russian guy who was undefeated for however many years, and just, a staple in USA wrestling and a legend in the wrestling community. And he's the head coach right now. I guess I'm an assistant coach, under Dan Chandler. And, we started training and traveling with the team. And it was just that program, the University of Minnesota program, their head coach, Brandon Eggum, their assistant coaches, embraced my family like we had been there to start, and so I have twin boys, and they grew up on a wrestling mat because I would go down for practice. They'd be in diapers running around, and the Slaters would be, kind of teaching them tumbling and stuff like that. And, this is why, like, when I'm at our gym, when parents are like, God, like little Johnny doesn't want to go to wrestling. Like, how do I get him to go? And I'm like, I'm not the best person to ask because my kids never had a choice. Like they were on a wrestling mat before they could walk, before they could talk, before they could speak.
It's part of their day, right? They don't even know the difference.
And they both had, my kids both had a really tough start to life. They were 10 weeks premature. My one son had a stroke, and scarring on his brain and a genetic disease. The other one had problems, he would basically flatline when he would take a bottle. He would blue out and pass out.
Oh, wow.
And you'd have to stim him awake. It scared the shit out of you, right? So, so they were both in physical therapy, and the one was in physical therapy, speech therapy, occupational, the whole 9 yards. And so, I wasn't really worried about either one of them wrestling. I was like, even a doctor told my wife and I one time, he's like, you guys are in for a rough ride. All these doctors and all these therapies were definitely helped, but that kid on a wrestling mat, and what Dustin Slater particularly did with him, teaching him the tumbling and the rolling. So they're 9 years old now. They're both in the same class, regular school. Yeah. They both train 4 days a week, jiu-jitsu. Yeah. The bigger one's a monster. The other one, he's getting there. Like, he's got a good guard, Yeah.
How old again?
They're 9.
9.
9. Yeah.
Plenty of time.
And we went from thinking this kid was going to be in a wheelchair, his whole life, or braces, to me yelling at him last Tuesday, like, AJ, lock your triangle up tighter, right? Yeah. And the other one, who couldn't suck, swallow, and breathe, he did a Newbury tournament last fall. He double gold. Nobody scored a point on him. He wrestled the shit out of everybody. But
do you ever think about somebody else in that same position who didn't put, their kids weren't wrestling at a young age? They might not have that same story right now. They would potentially still be having a lot of issues. That if they weren't that active from such a young age, do you agree with that?
I would say this, like, I don't only agree with it, I know it. I mean, and look, it's like, my wife would get up, she had a full-time job. She would take him to physical therapy. She found a great physical therapist in Michigan that was willing to open his practice an hour early so she could take him and bring him back and get to work. And I mean, like, dude, she's put a lot into it. You know what I mean? Like, she took him to practice last night, and I'm like, hey, how did they do? She's like, I was working on the computer, I couldn't see. But like that's a lot, man. Especially when it's not like, we're 3 guys, man. We leave, our underwear laying around. We're laughing, cry every time somebody eats. It looks like there's a separate meal on the floor. And, like, she's a proper, like, Eastern European, completely educated, so it's a lot, man, to have 3.
You married up is what you're saying.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's a lot to have 3 sloppy boys, trashing. So she's put a lot in, but and just what jiu-jitsu has done for my 2 boys. I see the confidence that they have. And it's not cockiness, right? Like, they've never been in a fight.
The quiet confidence that jiu-jitsu gives you.
They've never been in a fight. I don't want them to be in a fight, right? I want them to protect themselves. And I told them, I don't care if you get in trouble at school. Like, if you protect yourself, I'll buy you whatever you want.
I asked my last guest, not to sidetrack you, but asked my last guest, they're a couple. They opened up Ohana Jiu-Jitsu, Ohana Jiu-Jitsu Academy in Plantation. And we were talking about this, and I like to make this point. I said, when was the last time that you had since you've trained jiu-jitsu, when have you had a fight? Have you ever gotten into a fight?
Yeah.
And the answer is almost always no. And every once in a while, especially if it's law enforcement, it's like, well, in my job and restraining somebody.
Yeah.
But like, you could cite, I have this story myself. I was getting into fights and acting like an idiot when I was a younger guy. As soon as I found jiu-jitsu, that immediately changed day one. Immediately understanding, like, I don't know what other people know. And then once you know what you're doing, it's like, I don't want to hurt somebody. And then I'm going to be jammed up and I'm going to go to jail or I'm going to get sued. So, I mean, it's just like, again, it's that quiet confidence. Like you said, they don't want to get into fights. They understand the walking away. They understand, like, this doesn't make me any less of a man, or, right, you know, they're boys, but this doesn't make me any less of a person or less tough because I did walk away or I did grab a teacher or I got a parent or an adult and said, hey, this thing is going on over here. It makes all of that easier because they know the damage that they could actually do to somebody. I think we all know that, right?
So you know, funny story. So I remember in Michigan, we had a guest instructor, you know, Brazilian guy, black belt, like, you know, total badass, you know, tattoo on the neck, just a cool guy. And I remember the guys telling me a story like that. We had, you know, you always get one of these fruits and nuts that's in the gym, right? And this guy flips out and says, I want to fight you. And I remember I had so much respect for this guy because he just looked at him, you know, and in broken English goes, why? The guy's like, what? Like, he's like, why? You want to fight? Why? You know, now this guy could have killed that guy, right? And probably, you know, I don't think anybody would have thought he was wrong for doing it. But I just, you look at that and talk about that quiet confidence, man. Just somebody's going nuts, threatening you and this and that and screaming and yelling. You look at them and go, you want to fight me? Yeah, why?
It's a big part of that is the ego thing. I had an ego before I started to train jiu-jitsu, and jiu-jitsu teaches you to leave that ego at the door. So when, you know, again, you know, I've had tough matches with women. I've had tough matches with belts that are much lower than me that are my age and or younger.
Me too.
And you're like, what, you know, what's going on here, right? And it humbles you immediately. So understanding that, and like, again, when you get your ego checked, however many times a week you train, when you're getting your ego checked every time you go to the gym, it's so much easier to be like, half the time, first of all, when I go out on a Friday or Saturday night, half the time I'm so fucking exhausted from the week and the training. I don't want to be, listen, I want to go out and enjoy myself, have a meal, have a beer. So you don't even want to get, I tell people, there's something going, if there's noise going on over there, I'm over there.
I'm out, dude,
I'm like, unless like it's my friend, family, somebody I'm with, or somebody's getting hurt and they need help, that's different. But if there's a whole, you know, hustle and bustle or fighting and arguing going on, I'm so far away from that. I don't even want to be involved. I'm just like, I'm gone. You know? And I think, again, that goes along with just like understanding the responsibility that we have to, you know, as jiu-jitsu or martial artists, to not get involved with that shit or to really use it when it's needed and helpful. No,
I totally agree. I mean, I got smashed by John, the owner of the gym on Wednesday. You know, it sucks.
Let me get, we were going through your story, but I want to let's jump into some of these questions and you can elaborate as much as you like. I definitely want to hit some of these listener questions. I know some of these people know you. I think you train. One young lady here is the mom of somebody that trains that you train.
Oh, okay. All right.
Her name is Lauren. We'll leave that one for last.
Okay.
So we had Bill Swank.
Yep, I know Bill. Yep.
Okay. He sent us 2 questions. He says, how do you balance your work and family commitments and still be able to stay proficient with martial arts training?
Okay. So, you know, that balance is always tough, especially, you know,
with what you just described with your family and your boys.
So
difficult.
So you know, I volunteer my time at Ponte Vedra Beach Jiu-Jitsu, and I coach a wrestling class there. I'm in all the classes my boys are in when I'm home, and then I teach an adult no-gi class on Saturday. Again, you talk about this family, like I said about University of Minnesota, like the owner of this gym, you know, Ponte Vedra Beach Jiu-Jitsu, has just embraced my family and I and given me just an awesome place to train with my boys. So it's hard. It not only is it not hard for me to do it, it's hard for me not to be there, right? Because I get to be on the mat with my boys, and it's like a dream come true, right? And again, John's just been so accepting of me to bring wrestling to his school and to be part of his family, you know, and my wife and his wife are friends, and it's just a special place. So, but the question is, you know, how do I make time? So, sometimes, like for instance, when I was out with RFK Jr., right, I didn't roll that much, just because the situation didn't allow it. but I did work out every day, right? And sometimes that meant if I needed to be at work at 5 a.m., well, guess what, Joe? You're setting your alarm for 3:15. And I probably wasn't going to set any CrossFit world records or anything with the workouts I was doing, right? But I was doing something. And the physical benefit I got out of it was probably not as much as the mental benefit I did, right? Because again, I'm training my mind, and now you have that quiet confidence again, like you say, where I went out and like, I trained today, did you? I got up at 3:15 in the morning. You want to try today?
Yeah.
Because we're ready. And, so it's more of a mindset. And, it's hard to turn off, Secret Service Joe from Dad Joe to Professor Joe, right? Because, at work, I'm an agent in charge. It's yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir, right? People calling, yes, sir, hey, sir, can you do that? At the school, it's professor. When I get home, I get called a lot of things. Sir is not one of them. Right? Sir is not one of them. So, that
resonates. I feel that right here.
So, you've got to be able to make that switch though, and realize that like all these different parts make up one person, right? And like my kids and my wife, they don't care.
They don't give a shit
if I had a bad day, right? Or if work was tough, or I had to get up at 3:15 to do my push-ups. So it's just I think once you realize that nobody else cares and you've got to do it for yourself, that's the key to that.
So the second question here relates to, it's going to talk about law enforcement. I want you to maybe, if we can bookend this with, I don't know if you have any opinions on safe rap and what the Gracies are doing.
Yeah.
But let me ask this question, and then maybe you can kind of address it within the scope of this question. Sure. So what martial art do you believe is the most beneficial and effective for law enforcement? We all know the answer to that. Loaded question. Yep. Do you feel certain styles are better for specific law enforcement positions than others? And then again, we can talk about safe rap, I guess, in that regard.
Yeah, sure. So obviously jiu-jitsu, but I'm going to tell you why, right? Yeah. And so you take a striking art, and let's say any of the taekwondo, karate, Shotokan, Ishinryu, any of those, to throw a kick. If you're a Secret Service agent in a business suit with a gun belt on underneath that, very difficult, right? In a police uniform, you've got gear on. So again, just the practicality of using those techniques is pretty low. Striking techniques, guys, look, like, when I started in law enforcement in the late 90s, there was no cell phone cameras. There was no, internet, they didn't have
You weren't even doing body cams back then, right?
No. So, what, I'm not saying it was right or wrong to police that way. I'm just saying that there was different techniques for a different time period, right? I mean, if you, especially guys our size, right? If I'm in uniform and I'm throwing a jab cross hook on someone in the middle of the street and that's on video, even if I'm justified to do it, right? Is that the best way? Okay. Is that the best way to subdue someone, right? Because what are you going to do? Like, I punch you, you're going to punch me, right? So now I'm in a striking confrontation, which now escalates the force, right? So now you're going to punch me. Well, now I can go to my baton or go to my taser, or, so it's going to escalate. I can eliminate a lot of the attacks and the weapons of a suspect or someone I'm engaging by putting them on the ground. Okay. So I believe jiu-jitsu, but also with effective takedowns, right? And I don't believe traditional wrestling takedowns are good on the street either, putting your knee on the ground, leading in with your head. So I prefer more Greco style takedowns, even in the gi. I teach a lot of that, and in uniform. But being able to control someone effectively, and this, right? Like, if you're a black belt in jiu-jitsu and you're on the ground with someone,
I'm in my happy place.
Yeah, the chance, especially if you're on top, right? Yeah. Like, the chance they have of turning that tide on you is very slim, very slim.
They have to have trained something. They get incredibly lucky.
Yeah, they have, exactly. And like, even if they've trained something, right? Like, they're probably drunk. Let's face it, right? They're and they maybe weren't expecting this confrontation to go the way it did, right? Where again, I've got that mindset where when I'm on duty, I'm ready for this, right? So, I believe you have all the advantages if you're trained. I just don't know of another martial art that where you're able to keep yourself safe, right? Because think about like just some of our basic control holds, like knee on belly. I mean, you're up, your gun is safe, it's away, you can see, that there's, side control again. If you're conscious on which side you're on, you could protect your gun, you can control the person's arms, back mount, things like that. Now I know like there is some jiu-jitsu techniques that you can't use in law enforcement, like choking, right, anymore. So, we could talk about that probably for a whole nother podcast, but
well, that leads us to safe wrap, and is this, it's kind of like the gift wrap position for the most part, at least, right? At least with one arm across.
Yeah.
So I mean, thoughts on this, and is this, for departments like New York City who you can't choke. You can't do a knee on belly, no pressure on the stomach, the belly, the back.
Right.
So you can't put a knee on the sternum. You can't do it. They've taken all of that away. And they were actually, I think the Gracie brothers, Henry and Huron, were actually in New York training. And, I hope that it turns the tide a bit. And if they're not going to allow those holds, those chokes, I mean, the things that are like the staples for us, you're taking these things away and then telling me to do my job. It is safe wrap the good alternative? Is this the future of law enforcement?
I think you need two people for that too, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's the future of law enforcement if you have two.
Yeah.
Right.
I guess. Yeah.
But like again, like if you're a Secret Service agent, you're on a post. Sometimes your next post is it's a couple seconds away, right? So the gift wrap is great if there's two of you.
Yeah.
And again, it's like it's one of those things where, what is a choke, right? Like if I'm on someone and I went through the Gracie Combative School in 2004 or 5. Those guys are awesome instructors. We went out to Torrance. We went through it was a week or 2 weeks, I can't remember, but it was a great class, and it was they really presented, even back then, and I'm sure it's even better now. They presented a great product, and I mean, they are legit. For anyone who says they're not, like I was pretty good. I rolled with Henry Gracie. He armbarred me fairly quickly. I rolled with Henry years later. He pulled guard immediately and armbar. They're good, man. So for people that don't think they're good, like I could tell you, they are good. And they know what they're doing, right? They've been teaching law enforcement. Just because they're not cops, and I got a good comment on this too, doesn't mean they can't teach good law enforcement technique. I think, if they're teaching it and it's working and departments are accepting it, I think it's great. Like I had a wrestling coach that always would say, you can't argue with success. Like people are like, oh, that move's not supposed to work. I mean, just did it to me twice,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I also think it's good for law enforcement officers to not just train with themselves. I think it's really good for them to go to a school and train with just regular folks from different walks of life, right?
Sure.
I think you kind of get into that culture. We do too, right? We sit around in a room and, complain about the Secret Service and life and this is, and, if you get out and you talk to other people, right, and train with other people and see, one, it's going to give you good data about what other people know, right, on the street, as you had mentioned earlier. So now I know, like, well, man, I'm in this Thursday night class. There's like 35 guys in here, and they're all pretty damn good, right? Or hey, I've learned these techniques, and they work on someone that isn't a cop, that isn't, So I think you get good data too. It's good community outreach, man.
Yeah.
Like people know what I do at my gym. They're really going to know now when they hear this, right? But I think it's good community outreach. You're like, shit, man, that guy comes in and puts his gi on just like we do, ties his belt the same, and goes home, sees his kids, sees his wife, drives a regular car. It's it kind of humanizes that part of your job too. So I think it's good to do that.
So that'll lead me to this next question. This is Lauren Bayless. I believe that you coach her daughter.
I coach her daughter, in wrestling and jiu-jitsu.
She's asked, her question was, what is your favorite jiu-jitsu move and why?
Yeah.
And what is your favorite wrestling move and why? Yeah. And then she mentioned that you were her daughter's coach, and she said some nice things about you.
Yeah, so her daughter is a stud, man. Just that kid.
How old?
She's a couple years older than my boys. I think she's like 11 or 12. Maybe she's 12. She's in the gym every day. She trains 6 days a week.
Yeah.
If she gets super upset when she doesn't do well, like she's gonna be a superstar.
Yeah.
Yeah, and her parents are super supportive. Her dad trains. He's a blue belt, I think. I think he's a blue belt. Great attitude, just a great guy to have around the gym. And my favorite jiu-jitsu move is the one that works, right? So I don't know. I use You know, I'm old and slow, so not too many fancy upside down things. I had spine surgery a couple years ago, so I don't roll over on my head too much. You know, I like the mount a lot, and either a Kimura or an arm bar from the mount. Those are probably my go-to techniques. For wrestling, you know, I'm a 2-on-1 guy because it works in a gi, it works in a singlet, and it works on the street. So I do a lot off of 2-on-1s.
Okay. Very cool. All right, so now we're going to get into, we did have a couple other questions, but we're not going to have a lot of time to go through them. I want to go through, we call it the drill down.
Yep.
This is a group of kind of the most popular questions that get asked, so it's just like everybody asks, like every episode we get these questions. So I'm going to run through these. You can elaborate as much as you want, but a little bit, we'll do these a little bit quicker than some of the other questions. So first of all, we got to use our sound effects guy. So what time is it?
The drill down.
All right.
Oh, actually, he has that recorded, right, where he actually inserts that into the podcast.
Okay.
All right, so we'll go down the list. So what's your favorite? What's your preference, gi or no gi?
Now, gi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gi guy?
I'm 50. My scrambling is a little bit. I could still pull it off on someone that doesn't know how to wrestle, but if somebody even has like high school wrestling and they're younger, I'm done. So, gi.
So then we get to takedown or pull guard?
Takedown.
All right. Music during rolling. You're a coach, so do you get to control the music if there's music?
So I have a playlist for the kids. It's the rule, I pick. I haven't done this in a couple weeks because I've been gone, but I let the kid, you know, like the athlete of the day, pick the song to add to the playlist. So I let them pick their own playlist. The rules are no bad language and no silly songs. So
So no Baby Shark or
Baby Shark or anything like that. Yeah. So it's a pretty clean, you know, kind of pop rock playlist.
So this is I'm going to add this question in. So you said you've gone for a little bit. Are they like, where have you been, coach? And, you know, are you giving him an elaborate answer, or is it just like, I was away for work?
Yeah, I think their parents, you know, a lot of the kids that are in there, a lot of their parents also train and they know where I was and I was, you know, and then they saw, you know, some of the shots of me on TV and they would circulate around. So, you know, they all knew I was out doing stuff, you know, for the country. So everybody was pretty understanding, and you know,
they got to think it's super cool too, right? I mean, it's, you know.
Well, I mean,
I know how proud I was of just telling everybody my dad was a cop, so I can imagine, you know, it's.
So my son said he told someone in school and they didn't believe it.
It sounds like my dad could beat up your dad. He's a Secret Service agent.
And I mean, he's also a black belt in jiu-jitsu and a former wrestler, so he probably can beat up your dad.
All right, come on, my dad could beat up your dad.
But yeah, I mean, you know, like that's a big part of it too, right? Is like I you know, like no one will keep you more honest than a little kid, right? Yeah. And like, you know, part of what drives me to stay in shape and keep practicing and training, because trust me, guys, like at 50, I don't feel like it sometimes. You know, Milton. I mean, there's times, you know, everything.
3 major injuries.
Yeah,
right 3.
Everything hurts, and you know, it's like. I mean, I've been married for 15 years. My wife probably wouldn't care if I got, you know, a little heavier and a little slower. I mean, maybe she would. I don't know. But you know, like,
she would.
but those boys, like, they need a positive example, right? Yeah. And what better than their dad, right? Because if it's not you, I firmly believe this. And, you know, we had talked off air about your Academy Safe program. You know, the Secret Service, we have a partnership with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. It's right up here in West Palm. You know, if you're not going to be that role model for your kids, or you're not going to be that voice in their head, or you're not going to be that influence they think of, someone else will, guaranteed.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. Not even on purpose, maybe just organically, right? So like I would, you know, what would crush my soul is for my kids to see me, you know, get out of shape or get soft on the mat or not. And plus they train 4 days a week. Like, who am I to tell them to train if I'm not, right?
Yeah. With Academy Safe, you just said something that really has been resonating with me since the last podcast, because I did talk a little bit about, without mentioning school and coach names, I spoke about Academy Safe and why I left my gym. And for people that know what's going on at the gym that I left, this person is teaching your kids.
Yeah.
And he's been a bad boy.
Yeah.
And this is the guy that is doing that after training talk with kids that a lot of coaches do. How can you, in my mind, how can you look at him while he's telling your kids to be good, knowing what he's doing? And so it's hard for me to put those two things together. I'm like, I don't understand why everyone hasn't left the gym, especially when they kind of know. I know it's hard, and we talk a little bit about it. It's almost like a cult sometimes. It's very hard to leave your gym. These are your friends, your family. I was I trained at my gym for 8 years of my 10 years training jiu-jitsu. I was at the same gym. Very rarely traveled to any other gyms. Once in a while, I went to another gym to train, but I was always back home. So I know how hard it is to leave. So I don't fault anybody for staying. I understand everybody has their own journey, but it does drive me nuts, and it's what's driven me to this this mission with Academy Safe. Is there are people out there that feel like there's nothing they can do, there's nobody they could talk to, there's nobody they can call. There's like, I'm stuck here. I'm if I leave here, I lose my friends, my family. If my kids train, they lose their friends. I've had that, like, hey, my kids have their friends here. I can't go anywhere. Even somebody that made an allegation, her child was still training. She left and didn't train, but she still had her child training there. And then she took him out. It was that hard to take the kid out, and he's leaving all his friends he's been doing jiu-jitsu with almost as long as I've been training, so it's very difficult.
I mean, I get it, but the hardest choices are difficult, right? I say that, and I do some leadership speaking and things. I always say, like, everyone, as a parent too, right? I put it in this, everyone wants these titles when things are going well, right? Everybody wants to be the agent in charge. Everyone wants to be the chief. Everyone wants to be the general, the boss, the mom, the dad. When things are, oh, your kid's so sweet, oh, your kid's so nice. Like, no one, you've got to embrace those roles when you've got to make the hard decisions, right? And that's what really defines, that's what really puts substance behind those titles, in my opinion, right? Yeah.
All right, so I know we didn't get to talk about everything. I have some more questions for you. I know that we didn't get to go talk about your whole journey. Yeah. We could definitely love to have you back, man. So we'll pick up the conversation. But let's finish the drill down here. Yeah. So we talked about music. I was going to say, your music, if you're controlling, you're teaching kids classes, so you're letting the kids control the music, but I usually ask music. What's your go-to when you're training? What do you want to listen to?
Man, I listen to it nowadays. To be honest, when I train myself, I listen to podcasts. But if I'm going to listen to something, it's going to be like 80s, 90s, like heavy metal rock, Pantera, Danzig, stuff like that. Yeah, that's where I kind of grew up with that stuff.
I love everything because I actually like every once in a while at my old school, like a love song would accidentally play on the playlist, or if it was like on Pandora or something. But I would embrace it and joke and maybe sing the song to my, like, if I had somebody in a joke and I'm singing them a love song.
That's awesome, man.
My first coach used to do that. He used to whisper in our ear. He used to actually say this, which is kind of silly, but he would actually say this. He's like, I like your panties.
Yeah. Again,
he'd whisper that into your ear, and you'd be like, "What did you just say?"
That might get you. You're an Academy Safe might alert when that goes off, right? You're gonna get a text.
So, okay, as a coach, what's the most annoying thing that your students do?
Don't line up quick enough.
Yeah.
Don't get going quick enough.
And now you're also a student, so what's the most annoying thing that coaches do?
I've been blessed with just awesome jiu-jitsu coaches. Like I said, I don't think I could have picked better people. As far as humans or not, but things I've seen other coaches do. You're just a human being, man, like everybody else. Like this pedestal and this obsession with the titles and reverence. Yeah. It's like I like, you're really good at jiu-jitsu, or you're really great at baseball. Like, got it.
Yeah, I've been saying, like, the title and the belt don't make you a good person. No. Being a good person makes you a good person, and being the title and the belt don't make you a good coach. Being a good coach makes you a good coach, right? Not everybody's, just because you have a black belt doesn't mean that you're a good person or that you're a good coach. So it's you can't look at somebody and automatically say, oh, well, they have a black belt, they must be good at this thing. They could be great at jiu-jitsu, but they might not be the best person or the best teacher of this discipline.
Sure. Look, and I would argue maybe the best competitors aren't. Like, let's look at mainstream sports. Like, how many NBA Hall of Famers as players or coaches? How many NFL Hall of Famers as players or coaches? How many Major League Baseball player Hall of Fame, like big superstar names, are also head coaches, right? So, like, wrestling, jiu-jitsu are a few sports where that is the case, right? And but in most mainstream sports, no. Like tennis, look at that. I guess Andre Agassi was pretty good, and he's a coach now. But you know that you're pretty good, pretty rare that you find someone that was, you know, the highest level of the sport as a competitor who's also been a high level coach.
All right. What would you be, I'm going to make this too, I usually ask this specifically about martial arts. Say, what would you be doing if you hadn't found martial arts?
Yeah.
I'd like to know, what would you be doing if you hadn't found martial arts?
Okay.
And what if you hadn't gotten to the Secret Service? Where do you see yourself in your career?
So I wanted to be a Secret Service agent since I was a little kid. Yeah, I did. And so my stepdad owned a small independent insurance company, and I had done like an internship there for a little while, and I was just like, man, this is not for me. So I knew I was screwed, man. With a suit and tie, 9 to 5, type job in an office. I don't know, I don't know what I would have done.
Yeah. Do you have like any skills? Like, like I've had people like, well, I'd love to draw, and I was a graphic designer, and I went to school, I went to college thinking I was going to do this. None of that.
I think I have a good skill set coaching because I have an ability, I think, to relate to a broad array of folks. You could probably argue that's because of the experiences I've had with the Secret Service and in jiu-jitsu and wrestling, but I wouldn't necessarily want to be a school teacher, but I think I could have coached at a high level. I did coach at a high level of wrestling, for a little while when I was there in Minnesota, and that was just kind of by luck. But I think if I would have dedicated myself at a younger age, I think I could have been a coach.
Yeah. It's my favorite part of jiu-jitsu now, especially now, is the teaching. I got invited to teach at a school, and I love that. At my first school, even at White and Blue, I was the coach's first blue belt. New school, I was helping teach the kids and teaching the adults. I was in my 40s when I found jiu-jitsu, so an adult, a responsible adult, a business owner, and he was just like very comfortable giving me the keys, or being like, as soon as he saw I loved doing it, he'd be like, hey, warm him up, teach him these basics, like, go ahead, start the class. I'm going to be late. Can you open? Yeah. So I've always, like, now getting back to that a little bit at the school that I went to. The first night I went, the guy was just like, hey, you got any? I was like, yeah, I'd love to show something from this position. I see that they're getting their foot caught here. I got a good submission from there. And then I got invited to my last guest academy. I love it. That's my favorite part. It's always been like one of the things that I loved about jiu-jitsu, but now, especially with like injury, like, oh, I can go teach and I can go help, and I love that part. Yeah, it definitely resonates with me.
I love, and like getting that question from Lauren, just making an impact, on other kids, and then like selfishly, like I said, like I don't always show it to my boys. So if you're watching this, like it's like it pinched me every time I walk on the mat with them, and I could be like, man, who gets to do this? And it's just we have a lot of fun, and it is the best part.
All right, so we've got our very last question. I don't know if you've listened to any episodes all the way through. Do you or do you not wash your jiu-jitsu belt? Very popular question. Yeah. And very divisive.
Not often.
Okay.
I throw it in a couple times a month. Yeah. Depending on the rotation.
I've always washed my belt from because nobody told me any differently. My coach wasn't of this. From that, don't wash it. It's got the blood of your the blood and sweat of your competitors or your competition. I have not washed my black belt once. I got it in December. I haven't washed it. I do either. You saw the wipes that we use, the Nutrizone wipes. I have a spray. Oh, nice. So I spray the belt, or I either Lysol it or spray it, and I hang it, and I haven't washed it yet. Only because I feel like I want this one to last a long time. Yeah. So it's kind of like that's the belt that was put on my way. I really want to have that belt. But
how cool
I've always had two. Yeah, I've always actually had two, so it's just like throw one in the wash and then take the other one to class.
But how cool does it look, man, for those guys that have it's basically white with just a couple black threads left on it.
It's like he's gray belt.
It's like I'm not touching that guy, man. He's been around, so.
I've seen those. Those also smell really, really bad.
They're terrible. Yeah, terrible.
Have you ever smelled one of those?
No.
There's no amount of Lysol. There's no amount of sunlight that disinfects that thing from the smell. Yeah. You may kill some of the germs, but it still freaking smells.
That's funny, man.
So, all right, Joe, let me, I'm going to shout out a couple of sponsors real quick.
Sure.
I really appreciate you doing this. Thank you. Hang on. We're going to take some pictures real quick at the end
problem.
here.
Yep.
Are you hungry?
Unlock the power of your online presence with Black Belt Digital Marketing. Their reputation management program ensures your Google business profile is seen by more potential customers. Black Belt Digital Marketing is your full-service digital marketing agency specializing in local SEO and reputation management. Boost your business today. Visit bbdigitalmarketing.com. Your success is their priority.
Special thank you to the crew over at Flow and Roll for all their support. Flow and Roll is renowned for their incredible no-gi rash guards, shorts, and leggings. Flow and Roll has quickly become the premier custom apparel provider for academies big and small throughout the United States. Reach out today to discuss your custom order and ask about their incredible pre-order program. You can send an email to flowandroll@gmail.com or visit their Instagram at flow_n_roll and shoot them a direct message. And yes, they can create an awesome custom gi for your academy as well. Visit flowandroll.com to check out their awesome designs, and while you're there, pick up a Jiu-Jitsu Dummy signature tee exclusively at flowandroll.com. And remember, you'll get 20% off your purchase of t-shirts, rash guards, or gis with code JJD.
I'm good.
I was going to say, you want to go grab some sushi after this? You have
and me?
time?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's grab some sushi. All right, so shout out to combatcbds.com. Check them out. Got some CBD behind me. Can you see it up there? These are the tastiest gummies. They're so sweet. That might be a bad thing to say, but these are really cool gummies. Again, CBD, combatcbds.com, 20% off with code JJD. We got our friends over at BioPro. Check them out at bioproteintech.com. You get $30 off. I said percent last time, right? $30 off with code JJD on their regularly priced kits. So your order's got to total more than $295, and then you get $30 off. The BJJ box is back. Oh, we didn't do the BJJ box. Let's do this real quick. I promise, Christian, I'm going to do this quick. So got a new box. They went to quarterly. You could check out the bjjbox.com. You get, we actually moved it to, it's JJD 20, and you'll get $20 off your first box, I believe is what he did, off of your first box. So you just get it that one time. All right, so we got, real quick. Well, I got something for you too, Joe. I forgot.
Oh, thanks.
So we got you always get a T-shirt. He actually sent me two. I got a large and an XL. Got a sickle on the front. Says submission on the back. Oh, here, wait, we got it. Submission, right? Got to go quick, Bo. So you always get stuff like, got kinesiology tape. You've got, pain cakes. I think this is actually like a pad that you put.
Oh, nice.
You put like on the like on an injury. We got a hat that says Fight Camp. Very cool. And this is how bad my shoulder is. This hurts going into the box.
Brutal.
So we got Lenny and Larry's. We got a cookified Big Bar, cookies and cream. Always got something tasty in there. We were talking about bands, right? Yeah. Bands, I need these. We were talking about some exercises for the shoulder before the show. And then, defense soap. You got some defense soap. Here you go. You want a defense soap?
Oh, nice.
Take one.
Thanks.
Defense soap. Very cool. All right, so that was this month's BJJ box. Again, they went to quarterly, so it's no longer monthly. So you guys can check them out. Awesome partner. Actually came back on board to help out with Academy Safe. So we're gonna have like some information going into. Sometimes they do like flyers and things like that for like specials. He's gonna allow us to start putting information in the box,
cool.
and maybe we're gonna do some like have like a little. We do a little rubber logo for the keychain.
Oh, nice,
like
nice.
So we're going to do stuff like that and get that in there to help get the word out as well. And then I got some. I figured from pictures it was either a large or an XL. What are you?
Yeah, it depends. If they run big, probably a large. But if
these are meant to be a little tighter up here, gives you a little room in the belly.
Then yeah,
I'm an XL.
Maybe XL.
I'm an XL. I'm a double XL after I eat.
Okay, yeah. Maybe an XL then.
Let's do the XL. So this is our Flow and Roll. We partner with Flow and Roll on these, so you got a shirt there.
Thanks, brother.
And then I also have, this was a rash guard and shorts that we designed.
Oh, nice.
So I had a heart attack, so the heart thing was on purpose.
Oh,
so I had a heart attack when I was 43.
Holy shit.
So heart, jiu-jitsu symbols, the shark, the shaka is on there. And then I don't know if that's too PC for you, but at the end of the show, you'll hear what we say at the end of the show. That'll make sense.
Nope. It's all good. It's all good.
And anyway, last but not least, we've got the shorts as well. Oh no, I didn't have shorts. I'm sorry. This was another top. If that didn't, I think I gave you here. This is the XL. Take that one.
Perfect. Yeah.
And
XL
this is the large is smaller.
Okay.
So all right. So that was everything. What's that? When you start training jiu-jitsu, you start getting jiu-jitsu gear.
Yep.
That's the deal. So listen, everybody, check us out at Jiu-Jitsu Dummies for all the ways to watch, listen, and support. You can check us out at Jiu-Jitsu Dummies Podcast on YouTube and TikTok. My personal IG is Uncle Milty BJJ. Do you want to give your handles out? I don't know
if you don't mind.
Absolutely. I'll give you this time to say hello and thank anybody that you work with and all that good stuff.
Yeah. So first of all, I need to thank you for having me on, man. I'm nobody famous or anything like that, so I really appreciate the opportunity to talk.
Well, this is a perfect example of somebody reaching out and starting a conversation and saying, "Hey, man, I might like to come on the show." So we actually do pay attention to that form on the site.
Absolutely.
But go ahead.
No, and again, I just Pontevedra Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I think it's pvbjj.com is where I teach.
Okay.
There pretty much every day. Not the owner. Actually, I have no financial interest in the place at all, other than just a great guy that owns the place and want to support him. And then my Instagram's just at Joe Scargill, all one word, 11. So at JoeScargill 11.
Okay.
That's it.
We're gonna do lots of promotion. We take some pictures. We'll pull out lots of. Pull out about 7 reels. We create like 7 videos.
Okay.
The crew here at Podcast Junkies in Boca Raton, they give us a nice little package of the the episode and some reels and things like that. So shout out to Christian and the crew, always helping us out. Also, just want to mention one more time, and I'm sorry that I don't have like an exact place, but obviously if you Google this, you can be a hero from the Walkers, right? Bridger Walker and family, amazing. Thank you so much, guys, for sending this to me. I'm like, I'm very moved by seeing this in your notes. So thank you guys so much. And that's it. So thank you for watching and listening. Peace, love, jiu-jitsu, everybody. Dude. And this is where the music comes in and it goes, dude.